Today we're diving into the Gospel of Matthew through a really fascinating lens. See, our source material makes a pretty bold claim that this entire ancient text was put together to prove one single cosmic truth. So let's see how it builds that case.
And there it is, right there. That's the central idea. The source we're looking at argues that every single one of Matthew's 28 chapters is built to prove this one point. The argument isn't that this is just one of the themes. No, it's that this is the entire reason the book was written.
So what we're going to do is follow the evidence our source presents step by step. We're going to see exactly how it pieces together this case for a pretty cosmic claim, starting right from Jesus' very first appearance.
So the idea here is that this isn't just a collection of stories. It's a meticulously painted portrait, designed from the ground up to reveal a divine figure walking among us.
And where does this argument kick off? Well, logically, it starts right at the beginning. The source points to the story of Jesus' birth as the foundational evidence for his divine nature.
The very first piece of evidence our source brings up is a name. Think about it. Before any miracles, before any sermons, Jesus is called Emmanuel. And Matthew doesn't leave you guessing what it means. He tells you flat out, God with us. The point here is that this isn't some subtle hint. It's a headline right there in chapter 1.
The evidence just keeps building. Only a chapter later, you've got these wise men from far-off lands who come not just to honor a new king, but to worship him. Our source highlights this because, in this world, worship was an act reserved for God and God alone. But here, it's being directed at a toddler.
And this pattern just keeps going. It's like one thing after another. By chapter 3, a voice from heaven itself declares him the beloved Son. Then by chapter 4, after his temptation in the wilderness, who shows up to take care of him? Angels, celestial beings. The source presents these not as random, cool events, but as a deliberate sequence of divine signs, right from the very beginning.
Okay, so from his origins, the argument shifts to his actions and his words. The next big theme is how Matthew shows Jesus using a kind of authority that it's argued could only belong to God.
Just take the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus repeatedly brings up the ancient divine law with the phrase, "It was said of old," but then he immediately follows it with his own authority. But I say to you, who does that? The source frames this as the act of a supreme lawgiver putting his own word on the exact same level as God's.
And the examples of this kind of authority just keep stacking up. Forgiving sins, which was seen as God's job, claiming to be Lord over sacred things like the Sabbath and the temple, commanding the forces of nature, the wind and the sea, knowing people's secret thoughts, and, maybe the biggest one of all, declaring that he himself will be the final judge of all humanity. It's a staggering list.
All right, so all of this is building to a climax, right? After showing his divine origin and his incredible authority, the focus moves to the ultimate confessions and declarations about who Jesus truly is.
So how is this identity finally cemented in the story? Well, according to our source, it happens in these key moments of confession, first from the people around him and then from the man himself.
First up, Peter's big confession. But our source really zooms in on what Jesus says next, that this truth wasn't a human deduction, but a direct revelation from the Father in heaven. So it's framed as this moment of divinely given insight into his true identity.
In this next one, what's so powerful about this moment is who says it. This isn't a follower or a disciple. It's a Roman centurion, a hardened soldier who is overseeing the execution. And at the moment of Jesus' death, his point of greatest earthly weakness, this total outsider is compelled to declare his divinity. And then, finally, we get the declaration from Jesus himself. After the resurrection, he doesn't just say he has some power or spiritual power. He claims it all power in heaven and on earth. For the source, this is the final, unambiguous statement of absolute, universal, divine authority.
So, in the end, the perspective we've explored argues that Matthew's gospel isn't just a simple biography. Instead, it's like a carefully constructed theological case, where every chapter adds another brushstroke to this one consistent portrait, a divine king, the God-man.
And that leaves us with a final question to chew on. Whether you agree with this particular interpretation or not, how does viewing Matthew's gospel as one long, focused argument for Jesus' divinity change the way you read the story?